Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Drive Pink Dialogue for an early Tuesday morning edition of the pod. And today we are doing a top 20 draft. Inter Miami has just advanced to the conference semifinals, and I think this week we just want to enjoy, relax, be proud of our team, be happy. And so we decided the best way to do that was to put every single player against each other and have them battle it out to the top spot and rank them from there. So we're going to do it now. I also think it's important, not important, but interesting to do it now instead of waiting till the end of the season, because whatever happens in the last 3 games or however many games are left, you could have someone come away from that with this overzealous feeling about a certain player or two that could dramatically affect these rankings. And so to avoid that, we're doing it now when we have a calm, stable mind, and we're going to do our best to do this as well as we can. And aside from that, I'm your host, Scotty. I'm here with my co-host, Saur. How are you feeling on this lovely Tuesday morning?
You know, it feels like I'm playing a video game and I've reached a level that I've never previously reached before. With Inter Miami finally entering the second round of the playoffs, I don't know what to do with my life because this is uncharted territory. And of course, the way the MLS works is they've decided to tease us by giving us 2 weeks off. So as you said, we want to keep it nice, fun, and relaxed. And what speaks more relaxed than pitting your own players against each other? So here we are on a Tuesday morning, ready to battle it out. This has sometimes gone really south. We have come up with a draft that neither of us have been able to agree on. But over the last couple of times that we've done this, I think we've sort of fallen into a nice little pattern. So we'll see how this one progresses. It'll be interesting. There's some few interesting choices that we have to make today. And I'll be interested to see what your mindset is with regards to this team.
Yeah, just talking to each other beforehand, I think there is some interesting choices or spots that maybe we have different opinions on than we might have expected. Before we get into that, I just want to mention that the international window started on Sunday night, started Monday morning. And Inter Miami has 7 players called up for international duty. Those are Lionel Messi and Rodrigo de Paul for the Argentine national team. Of course, Ian Frey back with Jamaica, so clearly impressed enough on his first trip last month to continue to be a part of that group as they try and clinch World Cup qualifying. They actually have 2 huge games coming up. Noah Allen back with the U21 Greek team, Talasco Segovia with Venezuela, and then a couple young kids also getting opportunities. Santi Morales is with one of the U.S. youth teams, and then Israel Boatwright, who we have not heard from or talked much about this season, is back with the Dominican Republic full senior national team. So clearly he's healthy, and hopefully this is the kickstart of a big winter for him, and he can become a contributor for the team next season.
Yeah, international break is always important for some of these players to get minutes, and it's always nice to represent your country and your nation. So good luck to these guys. Stay safe and come back healthy. We can't wait to have you back for a very important game in a week and a half.
Yeah. And then the other thing, well, we talked about our thoughts on the international breaks. If you want to hear them, you can go back to our last episode. But the other thing I wanted to mention is we have official game time for that Inter Miami Cincinnati game. It's going to be 5 p.m. Eastern time on Saturday of next week. I believe that's the 23rd. So that game maybe could have been scheduled for Friday night. It could have been scheduled for Saturday night. Instead, they're opting for Saturday in that early evening time slot, which I actually think maybe helps because for Inter Miami, if you get into the colder hours as we get later on in this winter into that Ohio night, it's going to get colder, it's going to be windier, it's going to be less fun to play in. And so if we can get at least the first hour of this game in the sun and at peak temperatures in Ohio time, I think that could be a real advantage.
Yeah, late afternoon maybe sort of ruins the evening a little bit, but it's good. We don't have to wait that long. We'll get into the Saturday, get going, and our pregame show is going to be ready to entertain everyone by 4 p.m. So excited for that. Glad it's on a Saturday, actually. Fridays are always and Inter Miami should be ready for that game in what should be a nice sunny Ohio late afternoon.
Yeah, haven't gotten the forecast for that day yet, but there was a cold front in the Midwest over the last couple of days, and it's been very cold. But hopefully, it's going to get up a little bit over the next 2 weeks, so that game is sunny and maybe 50s.
Something tells me it's going to be cold.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else before we get into this draft?
No, let's do it.
Okay, let's start with last time we did the midseason rankings. This was before we got the new signings of Rodrigo de Paul and Matteo Silvetti, and those guys will feature for the first time this season. And then lots of players on this list no longer at Inter Miami. Drake Callender traded, Benjamin Kramaski on loan, Federico Redondo sold, Leo Fonzo traded. So a lot of players that were here no longer here, and we can talk about that more as we get through this draft and how players have changed and everything like that. But I am interested in how exactly some of these key players are going to line up. And I want to start by explaining my first pick last time. You went first overall and took Messi, and I went second overall and took Suarez. And I know that I have been a big Suarez defender this season. But
apologist is the word we use here at the Drive Ping Dialogue.
Sure. Apologist. I felt at that point in the season, all three of Suarez, Busquets, and Alba had regressed in their play. And I kind of defaulted to Suarez because that's who we had placed there over the last few drafts before that, heading back into last season. I am very interested to see where Suarez lands in this draft because I don't think you can make that excuse anymore. Again, in the midseason, everyone seemed to be a little depressed in their production and their play. I don't think you can say that for most players at this point. I think the team is really rocking and rolling, and I'm not sure Suarez is the big... I don't think he has that as an excuse anymore. A couple guys not on the list, but another player that didn't feature in our top 20 last time but was eligible was Rocco Ríos Novo as the goalkeeper. I'm very interested to see where he ends up landing on this postseason 2025 draft. So those are the two that I'm really watching out for. A couple players are going to jump in here just because so many players have left. And then where does Rodrigo de Paul land? Where does Matteo Silvetti land? I think those are the interesting questions. What are you looking forward to in this?
I'm actually looking forward to the two new players, Rodrigo de Paul and then Rocco Ríos Novo. We have a lot of players who left as well. So there's places on the board that are up for grabs. Redondo, no longer here. Who's going to be in number 15? Kramaski, number 11. Who's going to take that spot? So I'll be interested to see if some of the new players actually occupy those spots, or by just virtue of not having that much depth, some of the players who may have been performing poorly and who may have been ranked, let's say Wegan being 16 in last draft, might actually end up higher because we don't have that much depth this time around. So there's some interesting permutations that can happen. Again, it comes down to your selection and my selection. So that always leads to some fun stuff happening on the board. But I also like the fact that we're doing this at a time when we feel good about this team, when the form is up and everyone is playing relatively well. Last time we did this, I think we were quite down and out on this team overall. We were coming off the back of, I believe, some 6 or 7 6 or 7 losses, draws, and it wasn't great. So hopefully the vibes are up and that reflects in the board itself and the conversations overall.
Okay, as we prepare, I'm going to ask you to do the explanation of how this works because I've done it the last 3 or 4 times, and every time there are questions about exactly how we're ranking these guys, we're drafting these guys. So I will let you explain the rules, and hopefully you can do it much more clearly and understandably than I can.
I will try not to confuse the audience, but I'll be honest, even I don't know how we do it. So here is the criteria. Simply put, this draft depends on what Scotty and I think about who the best player is. As simple as that. Who is the best player on this roster? That will determine the draft itself. Now, Scotty and I can either use stats, form, talent, potential as metrics to try and make an argument for that particular player. But the overarching question that we're trying to answer is who is the best player? An example of this could be that Rodrigo de Paul is a better player than, let's say, Ian Frey. But Ian Frey's form has been more contributive to the team's impactful performances. So Scotty could either choose Ian Frey above Rodrigo de Paul, or I could make an argument that Rodrigo de Paul should be on a higher position just by virtue of him being an overall better player, even though we might not have seen that at Inter Miami. So there will be some subjectivity coming into it. Keep an ear out for what our arguments are for why we're placing a certain player in a certain position. But the question remains, who is the best player? And we're going to use different metrics to define that. This is by no means an exhaustive list. It's by no means a definitive list. It is very much based on maybe our biases and our understanding of how we see this squad. So that's probably what adds to the chaos. But that's about it. And I'm going to stop talking now and let me know if that makes sense to you, Scotty. But that's how we're approaching this.
Makes perfect sense. And I will add one other thing. We're doing a draft. So I will go first this time. You'll go second. I'll go third. You'll go fourth. So we're always trying to take the best player available. But as we're going through it, if we have any disagreements, we will talk about it. So we'll come up with one official draft, but we might not necessarily agree on the order. And we'll go over that over the course of the episode. But beautifully done, Saur. Thank you so much for doing that. And I hope everyone understands at least as much as we do when we start this. Okay, you went first last time. I'm going to go first this time. He's been our number one in every draft. Actually, I think one time you took Suarez ahead of him. But it's Lionel Messi. Of course, it's Lionel Messi. He's the best player in Inter Miami. He's the best player in MLS. He's the best player in North America. And he might just be the best player in the world still. I don't know what else to say about him. And I think maybe we could be paid full-time jobs just to try and come up with new alliterative and poetic ways to describe Lionel Messi that are actually reflective of how good he is. But we don't do that. And so we kind of just end up awestruck and without words on some of the amazing things that he's able to do. The goals, the goal contributions, the impact, the gravity he has on the field in terms of forcing defenders to adjust to him, and it frees up other players. And then even with that, able to find ways to unlock defenses, score 1 million goals, create 1 million opportunities for his teammates, and drive Inter Miami into the conference semifinals. It's Lionel Messi.
We don't have the vocabulary to explain what Lionel Messi means to this team and how he impacts this team and what he does on a football pitch. You and I are not eloquent enough to do that. So all we can say is he's amazing. But I think this is a little unfair because this season, Lionel Messi has been performing at a higher level than what this draft suggests. So maybe there should be a position above number one that says king of all Inter Miami players, because that's what he is right now. He has been on a different planet over the last 3 months. I keep trying to explain to people who don't watch the MLS how good Messi is. And it's just so difficult because everyone thinks in the Gen Z vernacular that Messi's washed and that's why he's moved to the MLS. And then all I do is ask them to watch the highlights of a game. And 90% of those highlights are Lionel Messi. The things he does, the way he takes players on. I was going through Twitter the other day and somebody mentioned that Messi has been most successful in his entire career in adapting to various phases of his professional career. He started off as a winger. He had pace, skill, could take players on. As he grew older, he moved into the number 10 position. But what he's done best is evolve and adapt to understand what his body is capable of and what it's not capable of. And yet he continues to perform at the highest possible level, if not more than that. So all of that being said, number one, Messi, This is probably the only one that you and I are going to agree on. So let's enjoy it. And let's enjoy Lionel Messi while he's here with us in this club.
Yes. Can I just take us back to the preseason? And we asked not just each other, but a bunch of people around Inter Miami in our big giant preview, how many goal contributions would Messi finish with in 2025? Do you remember what you said?
I said 40, maybe?
I think you said 48.
Yeah.
You remember how many I said?
You said about 55?
65.
Oh.
Do you want to guess what he's at right now?
I want to say 50.
61 goal contributions, 42 goals, 19 assists. And if you want to throw in 2 hockey assists, MLS style, you can make it 63. He's going to have to hit 65 plus if Inter Miami wants to win the MLS Cup, and I wouldn't bet against him at this point.
The funny thing is he doesn't even have that many hockey assists. So it's just regular numbers.
I know.
And 61 is actually mad. You would win that lottery if you put a bet on it. But well done to you. Don't ever count against Lionel Messi. And is the season to be thanked for. So I'm just thankful that he's part of this football club.
Yeah, same. Okay, number 2 pick, your first pick of the draft. Who you going with?
I'll go with the only other player who I think has been as consistent as Messi is Sergio Busquets. This is his last season. We're probably watching him play the last few games of his professional career. He has been phenomenal. I think he's marshaled the midfield really well at a time when he's been asked to do a lot more than what he was asked to do last season. Playing in a 2-man midfield is not easy. We don't have the legs in there. He doesn't have the energy or the athleticism of some of the other MLS players, but he continues to show the class that he plays with. You talk about Rolls-Royce defender, Rolls-Royce midfielder. This is a Rolls-Royce player overall. He is the definition of class, and he's the definition of a unicorn. There's never going to be another Sergio Busquets. I'm going to miss him. But the performances that he's put in this season, some of the assists that he's had this season have been nothing short of awe-striking. Sorry. So for me, it's just brilliant the way he's been performing.
Yeah. They often say you don't really understand a player's impact until he's gone. And I certainly fear we're going to see that big time next year. But one of the interesting things that's happened this year is we've gotten an opportunity to see what it's supposed to look like without Busquets in Rodrigo de Paul. This is a guy who's supposed to be at his peak and has been in the World Cup and won a World Cup rather, and is going to be making the big bucks that is supposed to replace Busquets' impact in the midfield. And you see what Rodrigo de Paul is, and you see what Sergio Busquets is, and you realize even as as highly touted and as accomplished as Rodrigo de Paul is, Sergio Busquets, even another 5, 6, 7 years older, is another level and maybe 2 or 3 beyond what is considered a great player in the world. He's a phenomenon, and I think we've just been lucky and blessed to have the opportunity to watch him on a game by game basis. Also, can I just say, the durability of this man. He never misses games. He can play 90 minutes all the time. He leads the team in minutes played this season. He's going to finish played, He's going to finish with like 4,500, 4,600 minutes, depending on how many games Inter Miami plays in the rest of this run. So not only has he marshaled the midfield, been able to do it from the back line, been able to do it a little bit higher up the pitch, like still very versatile, better defender than he gets credit for. And then his ability to just control and dictate the game is something special. So I have no arguments. I would have put Busquets 2 as well.
By the way, just want to point out, this is the last time that we're going to be able to put him or select him in the draft. So just want to acknowledge that. And also, Inter Miami's play style is going to change next season because Busquets not there to do what he does. And we're going to have to adapt. It might not look the same. I'm not saying it's going to get worse, but it's not going to be how we're playing today. And enjoy one more game and then hopefully one more game and then hopefully one more game of Sergio Busquets, because this player deserves every bit of recognition for the fantastic career that he's had. All right, take us to number 3.
Number 3, we're going to say a lot of the same things, but it's Jordi Alba, who over the past few months has taken his game back to an elite level. Earlier in this season, and as we go back to the last draft, I felt everyone but Messi had seen their play drop off a little bit. Inter Miami, Javier Mascherano, they have figured out how to play to the best of their ability with this team, and most of that is allowing Jordi Alba to do and be what Jordi Alba is and does. And he's been fantastic because of it. The number of goal contributions over the last maybe 3 months has been a pace that he's never gotten to in his entire career. I think this is his goal scoring season's best. He absolutely should be playing for the next 2 years for Inter Miami. It's a tragedy that he's retiring so early, but just a weapon that few have ever been able to be at any spot in the field. And for him to be that where he is what gives Inter Miami the opportunity to be special.
If anyone can go longer for another couple of years, is Jordi Alba. I don't understand why he's retiring. I can see that for Sergio Busquets, but I don't know why Jordi Alba is retiring. He has more than 2 years in his body and more than 2 years at a very high level in the MLS. That being said, again, this is a player this season that we've seen have his, not lows, but I would say average performances and then amazing highs. That has primarily been a result of how he was being utilized. But his impact over the last 2-3 months has been nothing short of miraculous. I thought to myself in the middle of the season, boy, we've fallen so far with Jordi Alba. Last season almost being defender of the year to this season, not having that much of offensive contributions. Defensively, he's okay. And that really spells out how his season was going. And then it just takes an absolute rise and peak. And his form was brilliant. But that wasn't because he was going off and on form. It was because he was being used properly. And that just goes to show you have to know your players. And he started delivering. And there were question marks about whether he's going to deliver in the playoffs. 2 games, I thought he was fairly lukewarm. Very cold, actually. And then in the last game, I think he was one of the reasons Inter Miami won that game so comfortably. Red hot, and we're going to need him as red hot as ever against Cincinnati in that cold weather in Ohio. Boy, he's going to be missed.
So far, is this the order you had?
Of course. Okay. This is the easiest that we had to do.
Okay.
I think after this is downhill.
I do think it gets dramatically more difficult after this. Guys start to get in bunches, and we'll try and explain the tiers that we had them in as we go forward. But that brings us to pick number 4, and I will give it to you.
Can I just say, is this the first tier? Up until today, we've always done top 4 is the first tier. But I think today, I would like to say that the top 3 is the creme de la creme, the top tier. And after this, the level drops slightly. Is that the right way to look at it?
Yes. And not only that, I think these are 3 of the 5 or 6 best players in the entire MLS. Throw Heung-min Son in there, throw maybe Denny Bouanga in there, Evander, but these guys are as good as anybody. And they don't necessarily, Busquets and Alba don't necessarily have the numbers because they're not attacking goal scorers, but A, Alba does have the numbers, and B, like the quality and class of these guys is next level. Everyone else, you go from top of the top in the entire league to good player at Inter Miami, and then below that. So we'll get to it, but I definitely agree. This is tier 1.
That being said and clarified, the next pick, and probably the most controversial one that I will have to defend myself for, number 4, Luis Suarez.
Okay. Go ahead.
The criteria is who is the best. And I think on his day, Luis Suarez is brilliant. The problem is his day doesn't come that often. So we have to wait for it. But if I have to say that I'm basing this draft on the best version of the players, then Luis Suarez needs to be on there. He has to be in the top 4. I was really wrestling with having a couple of other players above Luis Suarez, but I think the contributions, despite what we say is a poor season, have been there to see for all. He's got, 25 goal contributions, 10 goals, 14, 15 assists. I think he does some really good things on the pitch. And we can have a conversation of whether he's going to be back for Inter Miami next season. But I don't want to say talent, but the impact is unquestionable. And just for that, I think Suarez deserves to be number 4.
Yeah, just to be clear, those were MLS numbers. Overall in the season, he's up in the mid-30s in terms of goal contributions. I'm surprised you went with him this high. I would not have. I will say, and we'll talk about this over the next couple picks, there was that tier, and now there's the next tier, and I do think he belongs in this second tier, but maybe I would have picked another player or two ahead of him. He's still really impactful. It's not as pretty. He's not as good as he was last year. I think early in the season, I really did think he lost confidence and form because of the way we were playing, and we have gravitated towards a style that should have supported him, and he was never able to really find that form that other guys did or that I would have expected from him once we started playing in a way that suited him. He still has a ton of goals and goal contributions in him. He's still a great playmaker. The vision is fantastic. His ability to score probably down a little bit from last year. Maybe like 5 moments this year where I talked about the hip-hop talent of Luis Suarez compared to 15 last year. So it's still there, but it's not as consistent. And so no doubt he drops from close to Messi in the real tier 1, right? Busquets and Alba are, if we're being honest, a tier below Messi, to being, I think, behind all 3 of them confidently. The one thing I will say, no one came up and grabbed that 4th spot. I think he made it. Like, I think someone could have done that, and no one did. And we'll talk about some of those candidates in a minute. But I'm fine with it because I think this is the right tier for him.
I have a couple of questions for you. If you may allow me to digress for a second. Can you tell me where you'd actually placed him on your draft?
I had him 7th.
Wow. Okay, that's much lower.
Again,
I
understand.
Yeah.
These 4 are all in the same tier for me.
Yeah, no, I understand. Now, my next question is unrelated to the draft, but it came to mind as you were talking about it. And there's no right or wrong answer, but I'd love to see your philosophy behind it. Do you think a coach should have a particular play style, an identity of how he wants to play, and then ask the players to play in that particular identity? Or do you think he needs to adapt his play style to the players? And more specifically, an Inter Miami coach. Doesn't have to be Javi Marciano, any Inter Miami coach.
No, you have to adapt to the players in this era. Okay. And that's maybe one of the most interesting things about team building philosophy in the MLS right now is a lot of teams are having a lot of success by being coach-led teams. You think about Cincinnati, you think about Columbus, you think about some of the best teams in the league. They figure out how they want to play, and then they bring players in over the course of many transfer windows to play that style. This Inter Miami team is different because you have Lionel Messi. There's no style, there's no formation, there's no structure that takes precedent over getting the best out of Lionel Messi, and then Suarez, and then Busquets and Alba. So I think it's most important that you play a style that fits them because they are so talented they can win you games if they're put in a position to do it.
All right, number 5, and I believe that's you.
Number 5 to me, I'm going with Telasco Segovia. I still think talent-wise, he's the best of this group. I think he's played extraordinarily well over the season. I can understand why he's found himself as a super sub role. It's not what I would have done. I still think he is one of the... I had him at number 4. I think he's the 4th best player on this team right now. The ball skills, the vision, the pace, not the pace of his actual running speed, but the pace of play and his ability to control and dictate it. I think they're all fantastic. And he brings an intensity that goes beyond what I think a lot of players with his athleticism bring. So I love this player, man. I really do. I hope we get another year of him, and I think he's fantastic. I really do.
I had him at number 5 as well, so we do agree on it, even though you were forced to put him in number 5. The way I looked at it is, in this tier of players, he is the most complete player overall in terms of his overall assets. The way in his best position he dictates play, as you said, his ability on the ball, his goal contributions as well. He slowly and steadily ticks them up. It's not spectacular, but he's one of the most complete players. The dip in form isn't as dramatic as some of the other players might have to go through. And I think you said it. He's amongst the most talented players on this roster. The problem is Javi Mascherano wants to play a certain way, and that's fine. But I do think if we get another season of Telasco Segovia, he's going to be one of the leaders in the middle of the park because his true position is the midfield. And I do think there's a case to be made that without Sergio Busquets in the middle, if Javi Marciano stays and wants to play a two-man midfield, a midfield of Segovia and Rodrigo de Paul would be actually very good in a lot of the games. So brilliant player, but my justification for having him number 5 was this, that he's the most complete player and the most complete package at this point in time in that second tier that we're looking at right now.
I agree 100%. I see people talk about his weaknesses and his athleticism, and I find it so interesting because he makes up for all of it with his intensity and his intelligence. Inter Miami has to play a certain style, as we just talked about, because of Suarez, because of Messi, and you can understand them wanting to get a ton of ultra-athletic players on the field to surround those guys. But once that's no longer the priority, and I don't think it will be next year when Busquets and Alba are gone and you can sort of balance out your squad talent in a more equitable way or a more sensible way, I think Segovia becomes like a hugely important piece there. And so, again, I hope we get to see it.
And he'd be a superstar on any other MLS team.
Yeah, I agree with that. Okay, pick number 6. Who you got?
I'm going to go for Yannick Bright. I think he was in number 6 last time as well. But again, it's a simple justification. I think for Yannick Bright, he has suffered a little bit because of how Javi Mascherano likes to play, very similar to Segovia. But this is the only player that can do what he does. As soon as he's on the pitch, the control in the midfield is completely different. His ball-winning ability, his ability to play that number 6 destroyer role was proven last season. This season, he's done something completely different. He has elevated his game by building on the ball-carrying skills, the line-breaking passes, and it's not perfect. He's not entirely the finished product yet, but combined with what he already has in his skills, with the talent and the potential that there is to build on those skills and make him not just a number 6, but a ball-playing number 6 potentially, really excites me. And again, I think in this second tier that we're looking at, he's among the most talented players. It's unfortunate that we don't get to see him play from the first whistle, but his contributions and impact on the team are undeniable.
This second tier, does it have one more player in your mind?
Yes, I would say so.
Okay, same. Yannick Bright you're right, hasn't played his natural position this year as a defensive anchor, where he excels. Right, he's been asked to play more of a box-to-box this season, and he's outplayed, Federico Redondo and Kramaski, and I would argue the guy who's going to be my next pick. And that's not even his natural position. For some reason this year, Javier Mascherano is really stuck with Busquets as that true number 6, when I think we both think there's more creative and useful ways to use Busquets' talent. He gets his new contract. I think he's going to be amazing next year if he can really get that number 6 role. I think this was a great year for his development to be able to sort of work on some of the other skills of being an all-around midfielder. I think we saw real progress this year, and I'm totally happy with him being number 6 over the guy who's going to be number 7, because I think, and I've said this multiple times, I think he's outplayed him. And that brings me to pick number 7, and we can continue the conversation between these two, and that's Rodrigo de Paul. Again, we picked multiple different, there's multiple different criteria you can use to sort of make your selections. Obviously, by reputation, De Paul is a much better player, and I think if you're just looking at his raw skills, Rodrigo De Paul is maybe better player. But I also think Yannick Bright has outplayed Rodrigo DePaul this season. And even since Rodrigo DePaul came, I get why DePaul's starting. He's a big money player, big name signing, connection with Messi, all this other stuff. So if you wanted to rank DePaul first or ahead of Bright, or even ahead of Segovia based on like skills, I can understand that. But by play, I would also go Yannick Bright over Rodrigo DePaul, and then round out tier 2 with Rodrigo DePaul.
I think one argument somebody would make about having Rodrigo de Paul above Yannick Bright is he's a proven talent, perhaps, and Yannick Bright is still raw comparatively and hasn't necessarily proven himself to that level, which is a fair argument to make. But I
prefer emerging talent on this. On this pod.
Exactly. We are very much biased towards emerging talent, but I agree with you. The performances that Yannick Bright has put have been consistently 7s or 8s, if you want to rate it that way. Whereas DePaul has had a couple of fantastic, maybe 8 or 9 level performances, but then his poor performances have been very poor to the point that they've harmed the results on the pitch at that time. Now, he's been asked to do a certain role that is maybe beyond him as a player. Sometimes he's left isolated in that midfield. So all of that needs to be taken into account. And I wouldn't fight you if you tell me that DePaul needs to be number 5 above Segovia and Bright, just by virtue of who he is and his name. But I do think that we haven't seen the best of Rodrigo DePaul. And in that vein, even though
Before you go to the next
gets going, no, I'm not going to the next one. I'm saying in that vein, if we see the best of Rodrigo DePaul, then he's probably going to get bumped up to that number 4 spot. But as of now, we haven't seen it for Inter Miami in an Inter Miami shirt. So number 7, I'm very comfortable with that. And I think that's where I had him as well. So we're in agreement.
Yeah, I don't think either of us would be surprised if he's number 2 next time we do this. Bright, Segovia, DePaul, all midfielders. I think the argument for any one of them is like a slightly different one. And so if anyone has any sort of different opinion on which one to prioritize, I have no problem with that. DePaul is highest, number 4. And just for the record, I had Segovia, Bright, and DePaul as 4, 5, and 6, and then Suarez here at 7. All in the same tier, all close. Segovia, Bright, and DePaul, I think it's just a personal preference of exactly how you want your midfielder to play, how exactly you value different aspects of the midfield. So, again, DePaul number 4, I wouldn't have any argument with.
Yeah, and moving on to the next one.
Can I stop you again?
Yeah, go on.
The first 6 are the same 6 that we had last time. The only change is that Suarez, dropped from number 2 to number 4. DePaul, the first new name on this list, but I think when DePaul signed, I think we would have all expected him to be right here. No doubt, I think that there's been very little movement in the top end talent on this team. We'll get into some of the movers and shakers, but in terms of like emerging into superstars, not much has changed since midseason, I don't think.
Yeah, I think, and this is an easier selection of the top 7. After this is more of a bloodbath, and I think you and I will have to make justifications for why we're picking somebody, because there's a lot of movement that can happen moving on from here. So from 8 to, I say, 14, 15 maybe, there's a lot of justifications that will be required for the choices that we make.
Okay, number 8, what you got?
This is a player that I see maybe 1 foot in the above tier and 1 foot in the tier that we're now defining as the 3rd tier. Ian Frey. He has proven with his performances over the course of the season that he deserves to be above Chelo Egan, who is a guaranteed starter at the start of the season. We all know Ian Frey's story. I'm not going to rehash that. He has come from adversity to now being a starter for this team in the playoffs. But my goodness, give him 1 more season and he might just be the best right back in the league. If he's not already, I don't know. Maybe we're biased towards him. But his ball playing ability, his control, composure, the way he plays out of space and under pressure, it's brilliant to watch. I am so comfortable when he's on the ball. There's certain aspects of his game that he can improve, especially as a right back. His offensive output which I think is going to be important if he stays on the team, given that Alba's now leaving. He needs to improve that offensive output. His passing can be a little bit more crisp and clinical. But overall, this player has really proven and grown into his own and has displaced a clear starter in Chelo Weigand. I think the ceiling for him is very high, maybe higher than any other player below him. But he hasn't necessarily reached that final point of what Segovia or Bright or Rodrigo de Paula. But I think give him another season and he might actually move further up in the table than he is right now.
His best games are up there in that group ahead.
Yep.
I wouldn't say we get that enough for me to put him there, but it has been such a joy to watch him come out of the academy and develop into this player. And then when you add on all of the context to it, going back to 2022 when we thought he might break out as a midfielder, and then all of the injuries that have led him to right back, he's still like a weapon on that right back side. And you kind of almost wish you could, well, of course you wish you could have seen what he would look like today if he had spent 4 years playing 2,500 minutes a year and was very versatile in the midfield and center back and right back. But maybe the best thing you could say about Ian Frey is, because I know some people get frustrated with him sometimes, when you watch Chelo Weigand play both ways and ball progression in the final third and defensively, it is such a clear upgrade with Ian Frey that you get to see the true sort of comparison. I have the same pick here, and I just hope we get more Ian Frey.
I think we will. I have a feeling we will. If we don't, then that's a whole week worth of conversation for the two of us on the podcast.
Yeah. Okay, pick number 9. I'm going with... who am I going with? I'm going with Maxi Falcone. First center back off the board. He is... I think he's shown us something over the last 2.5 months, a level of consistency. We had seen him all year hit highs that were very impressive, but we've seen a consistency over the last few months that has also sort of, for me, skyrocketed him up this list. And I think he's the biggest mover we've had so far. Last time he ended up at 14th. So big riser up the ranks here. And I think he's solidified himself as center back 1 for this team. And that was not the case when we did this last.
This is very interesting. I had him at number 10. So again, very close to what your assumption is. Biggest mover for me, absolutely. But the justification in my mind was the consistency, as you mentioned. He was very volatile the entire season thus far. The last time we did this, I believe he was going through a rough patch. His performances are a bit weird because it's against the difficult teams that he performed exceptionally well. And against the poor teams where you would expect him to hold his own, he wasn't performing as good, and some of his stinker performances came against those poor teams. But now he's reached, I think, an average level of his performance where, and by average, don't mean average as in he's an average player, but average is in a mean level of his performance between the highs and the lows, where it's like, okay, he's a consistently solid performer. And I think you said it. He, at this point in time, might be our best defender. I've really liked watching him play. I enjoy watching him play because he brings a certain spice to his game. He is not afraid to throw in a tackle. He has been doing something that Gonzalo Lujan really tries to do, but has been unsuccessful in doing, which is following the striker or the main target man and harrowing the target man into the midfield. He sticks to his man really well. He battles in the back line. Not the perfect defender. He has his weaknesses. Crossing is not his biggest forte. Dealing with crossing is not his biggest forte. Heading is not his biggest forte. But he makes up with that by just the way he conducts the back line. And that's how I see him. A conductor of the back line. And I think he's really grown into the performances over the last few months. And that reflects in the charts.
Yeah, I also think he's got a certain ability to get in the head of the opposition striker, and we've seen that more and more this year. as the season's gone on. So I think this is well deserved. And for Maxi Falcone, like there are times where we thought, okay, next year maybe he'll be center back 3. Now I think we both feel pretty good about him as center back 1 for this team as we get into the later rounds of the playoffs.
Yeah, I think we still need to improve our defensive unit for sure. But I wouldn't mind Falcone being centre back 2.5, where if he's continuing to perform the way he is one of the starting centre backs. But I do think we need to upgrade our defensive unit. So I won't be against us getting 2 new defenders if possible. But if we don't, and if we want to invest our money elsewhere, I'm comfortable with Falcone being the starter as a centre back for another year.
And the need is like, it becomes a nice to have than a need. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Whereas I do think there have been times over the last couple of years where you need an upgrade here. And I will also just say, Maxi Falcone was very inconsistent for much of his time. I feel good about him right now. I wouldn't be shocked if we started to see that again next year. But for now, I'm riding the high, and I'm picking him number 9. Who you got number 10?
I am going to go for Tadeo Allende, who I had as my number 9, I believe. A very divisive figure in the Inter Miami fan base, somebody who's gone through the thick of it in more ways than one. His poor form lasted a long while, but his purple patch, which I think is the true version of him as a player, has really cemented his position in the starting 11. I think you and I are both very comfortable having him in that right wing spot, sometimes substituting as a pseudo striker. He is now 7 goals in the last 10 games, which is a good return. And he's contributed more than Campana did, Matthias Rojas did last year, Robert Taylor did. I think overall he's been a successful signing, despite some glimpses of him being extremely poor and us holding our heads in our hands when we watch him play. Overall, I think Tadeo Allende has done a good job this season, which I think reflects in his position in that number 10 spot. I had him number 9, but again, this tier is more fluid for me than anyone else. So I'm okay having him as number 10. And I think that reflects in his performances. And he deserved to be in the top 10 of these players on this team.
Yeah, I went back and forth between Falcone and Allende. So I agree. Those two are the next 2 picks. We talked. He had a bad spell, and it was bad. It got ugly there for a little while. Javier Mascherano stuck with him consistently, and I think we had arguments about maybe there are better ways to spark him again. But I do think he's recovered from what felt to me like a confidence issue more than anything else. I think he's sort of got his head on right now, and we're starting to see what he can really be as a player. I will say the two of us have been very consistent in defending Allende when there's been a lot of criticism of him. And I think he's coming good on that. Last time we had him ranked 9th, and obviously when you add DePaul, that just slides everyone down a spot. So you and I have been consistent with Allende and where we sort of think about him, because I think we've both felt what he is right now is who he is as a player, and that there was just sort of an ugly down spell or a lack of form there for a little bit. But I feel good about Allende. I think he's a pretty solid player. And I think that the future conversations with him could be very interesting and will be very interesting, but maybe should be had once the season ends.
Yeah. All right. Who's number 11?
Number 11. I'm doing it. I'm pulling the first player. Well, I guess DePaul wasn't on the list, but first player that was outside the top 20 last time and is now skyrocketing up to number 11. Because you know this season I've been all about my goalkeeper advanced statistics, and that's Rocco Ríos Novo, who, if you haven't been paying attention, has been absolutely incredible. I think he started 15 games for Inter Miami. They only have 1 loss in those 15 games. When you watch it, you don't see the spectacular moments, but when you go and look at how he's actually playing from a more analytical lens, he's been awesome. Really, like he's He's actually really good, and I think maybe even a little bit better than Drake Callender. And you guys know we have huge respect for Drake Callender. I will say, small sample size for Rocco, but that is how good he's been playing. One thing I'll just leave it at that. Rocco's been really good. I remember when Drake got traded, and we went through the statistics on Oscar Ustari, and I remember saying, like, maybe this tells me maybe we should give Rocco a run of games. And it didn't happen then, but it happened eventually, and thank God it did, because I'm not sure we're here right now without Rocco going into goal. And I think we would have won the Supporters Shield if he had played there all year.
It was the Leagues Cup, wasn't it, where he had that run of games?
Yes.
And we looked at each other and we were like, is Inter Miami playing better, or are we a lot more comfortable in goal? I'm going to say something that I would want you to bear with me. He's average, right? He's an average goalkeeper. But that's exactly what I need from my goalkeeper. I do not want my goalkeeper to be flashy. I don't want him doing scorpion kicks in the goal. I don't want him being extra zealous. I just want an average goalkeeper who will make the saves that he needs to, who will pull off one spectacular save a game, let's say, and just do the basics very right. Now, I think I should amend that. He's above average. He's been doing phenomenally. I don't think it's a coincidence that Inter Miami's only lost one game in all the games that he's started, which is a crazy stat, by the way. And he's just brought this calmness and composure when we watch the games that we didn't have under Ustari. And for whatever reason that was, he's had some great saves during the course of the games that he's played as well. It's not like he's had nothing to do. This is a backline that constantly promotes the opposition from taking their chances. And he's been there to make the saves and keep a clean sheet in certain games and prevent us from losing certain games. So kudos to him. I had him as number 12, but I wouldn't actually fight you if you put him in number 9 ahead of Falcone and Allende, because his impact and his growth has been exceptional. And he's the winner of this draft, in my opinion. And shame he didn't round out the 10, but I think between 9 to 12, he could be anywhere.
I'm going to give you some stats on Rocco Ríos Novo. This is among all goalkeepers outside the top 5 leagues. So outside of the Premier League, La Liga, Serie A, Liga, and the Bundesliga. Outside of those 5 leagues, he's in the 99th percentile of post shots expected goal on by shots on target, 85th percentile in just raw post shots expected goal minus goals allowed, 75th percentile in goals against, 87th percentile in clean sheet percentage. We've kept, I think, 7 clean sheets in his 15 starts. Maybe it's 6. Anyways, significantly more than any other goalkeeper. I think he's one of the 10 best goalkeepers in the MLS based on the small sample size. And when you compare it to what we were getting before, which was bottom 3, maybe bottom 5, it has been a dramatic improvement. I actually don't know if we've gotten the crazy, incredible saves from Rocco like we got from Drake.
But I don't mind.
But the consistency has been fantastic. I also want to say, you said something there about our defense. I actually think our defensive structure is significantly better than it was in the last few years. And that the reason we gave out more goals was because of our goalkeeping play. And that has been shut off since Rocco's gone into net. So I think we also have very interesting conversations to have about Rocco Ríos Novo when the season's over. But for now, I just want to give him his flowers because they are actually very, very good. He's I don't want to say one of the best goalkeepers in the MLS, but he's top 10 probably. And small sample size, I get it. If he continues this over the course of the whole season, I think he'll establish himself as one of the best 10 goalkeepers in the MLS.
We just need to get him some cleats with heels so that he can be slightly taller, and that would solve all the problems that we have. All right, is it my turn?
Yes, pick number 12 to you.
Noah Allen.
Noah Allen, number 12. This is where I had him as well.
I had him number 11 and Rocco number 12, but I think it was a toss-up.
He's the biggest faller so far. We had him at number 6 last time. No, we had him at number 7 last time, right ahead of Ian Frey. I think you picked him there, and I was maybe a little bit more conservative with his ranking, but still drops to number 12. Neither of us have any argument about him belonging here. And aside from DePaul, no one's jumped onto the roster to make it obvious he had to fall. I don't think he's been as good in the second half of the season. Since he got injured, since he came back from injury, I think the performances have dropped from like a solid 7.5 average to like a solid 7 average, maybe 6.8 average. But that's good enough to be a starter. It's good enough to be a good player for Inter Miami. It's not quite what we were seeing in the first half of the year where I thought he was excellent. So I think this is reflective of what he's been lately.
Yeah, and I think if the midfield is a bit more robust, maybe Noah Allen's performances are better. I think you're right that after the injury, he's been less impressive. He's had a couple of moments every game here and there where he gets beat by the opposition player, where he puts himself in a little bit of issue or trouble. But that happens. I think his form hasn't dropped to the point where I'm like, oof, he might need to sit out and Gonzalo Lujan needs to start. It's not that. I think he's reached what I would describe as his first ceiling.
It's certainly not. Let's bench him for Gonzalo Lujan.
No,
Let's be clear. It's not even close to that.
I think he's reached his first ceiling as a player. He had an exponential growth over the last year. This time last year, Noah Allen was performing at a level that nobody expected. I think now that our expectation levels have changed, he will take that next step, but he hasn't done it yet. And I think based on our expectations now have matched up with what his performances were. So now we're constantly expecting him to be that great defender that he's proven that he is. He's just fallen slightly short of that, but I think that happens in every player's career. And of course, he's still growing. He's still learning. And I'm sure next season he's going to kick off really well and at that level. But it's okay. I'm fine with Noah Allen being at number 12 right now. And he hasn't actively cost Inter Miami any games. He's looked good, but not great. That's about it, I think. There's no other conversation I want to have.
The other thing is, I think he's had a dramatic increase in the number of minutes he's played this year of first team MLS soccer. So and add in the international call-ups and travel to Europe and all that. Like I wouldn't be surprised if part of it is, it had to recover from an injury and maybe the legs are not quite as fresh as they were in April. But again, like he's been playing well. So it's not a criticism. It's just some other players have been playing either more consistently or really jumped up in their level or have gotten opportunities to really jump up. And I think that's what causes Noah to fall a little bit. But he gets his new contract, and I think that was well-deserved too and important to it. Okay, as we get into pick 13, can I ask you a question? This is the 12 you've had so far?
Yes.
And do you think that there's a drop-off after the next 2?
Absolutely.
Okay.
We could have a conversation about the next 8 in the next 5 minutes. That's how much of a drop-off I see.
Okay, let's do the next 2 back-to-back, and then we can talk about both of them.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with Matteo Silvetti, number 13. And you're going to go with?
Baltazar Rodriguez is number 14.
These 2, the attacking players for Inter Miami, wide players, I think are really interesting players, and I think they have a lot of tools. The actual raw production has not been as impressive. When you rewatch the game, you have some wow moments, but that the 90-minute production is not always there. And so I think these 2 are maybe some of the highest potential players in this group of this tier, but maybe we've punished them a little bit by because they haven't had the same level of production and impact. And so I want to be clear. They are both really interesting and intriguing players, and they have earned starting spots in a do or tie game 3. The reason I chose Silvetti first is because I think both of them are in this area because of their sort of raw skills and their potential. And I think Silvetti is really, really high ceiling player, even compared to Baltasar. So for me, I go Silvetti, number 13.
Interesting. I had Baltazar as number 13, Silvetti as number 14. I won't be surprised if next season one of these two breaks it into the top 8. Their talent potential is that high. I wouldn't be surprised if Silvetti actually has a run of 2 months, 3 months where he's tearing defenders apart and lighting our world on fire and actually makes a huge rise in the rankings. I think so far the sample size is really small. Not
it
really
is.
small, but
No, it is. It's very small.
they haven't been. Silvetti specifically has not had the time to be embedded into the team properly. He went away on international duty. He came in late, of course, and hasn't had that many opportunities to start games. And then Baltazar was missing for 3 months, had an injury, then came back, had a couple of really impactful performances. But I think the conversation that you started off with, their raw talent is there, the raw potential is there. Just the delivery over the course of 90 minutes has not yet been available from these two players. It will happen eventually, and I think it's going to take time for them to play more minutes at this club. But I think the potential is very high, and I'm actually okay with them being in 13 and 14 because it gives them a lot of chance next season to rise up the rankings. And I think one of them, if not two, will have a leap. It might be by 2 places, 3 places, but they will. I expect them to move up and not stay at that position.
Well, we'll see about Baltasar being on the team next year, but I'm going to stick with Silvetti because we picked him first. It wouldn't shock me if he's the number 2 player on this list midseason next year because I think he has the potential to make that Diego Gomez leap. It's too soon because we haven't seen it enough, and ultimately, like, he has 1 assist in all of his time and no goals at Inter Miami. So, like, it is very early, but there hasn't been a ton of production to really rise him at the list. But once you take Busquets and Alba off the lead, potential list next year, we'll see what DePaul happens. We'll see what happens with the incomings. Like, I think Silvetti has a chance to be like the best U22 player in the MLS next year. That's how high I think of him. But at this moment, it's just we haven't seen. I mean, he started 2 games now, and he has 1 goal contribution. And like, I think it's too early to really jump him over some of these guys. But I think he's the most exciting U22 we've gotten, and maybe since that first trio with Aviles, Farias, and Gomez.
Yeah, I think he might be a more complete Facundo Farias. I don't know. I think
at a younger
the
age,
potential
too.
is higher. Yeah, the potential.
I think the potential. I'm a big fan of Silvetti.
Yeah.
Okay, and then as for Baltasar, I get it. I haven't seen as much from. I get some other people are really enamored with the skills. Like, I think he could be as good as the number 8 player in Inter Miami next year, but I'm not really sure that the minute-to-minute impact is as great as a Yannick Bright or a Telasco Segovia. And so for me, it's like a tier below that. One of the other things I want to say about Baltasar is when he first started playing, he was ultra aggressive, at least when he first got healthy. He had those crazy shots from outside the box that were just whipped in there, and he had that crazy goal. I think it was against the Galaxy. Had some nice assists there for a little bit. But I think he's gotten more conservative under Javier Mascherano by trying to fit in as a secondary player. And I don't know if that fits him and his play style as well. And it's tough because that's what the team needs you to be. But it's not letting you maximize what you are. So maybe he's another player that it's more about what the roster would look like next year and how we would play to really get the best out of him. So I acknowledge that I think that's maybe bumping him down in my head a little bit, but so far he's starting in the MLS playoffs. So, I mean, what more could you ask for?
Question. If you had the choice between Allende and Baltazar next season to keep one, who'd you go for?
I'd have to look at the rest of the roster. That sounds like a fun conversation for when roster decisions are made. But
Yeah.
I will
We
say
don't want to.
the thing about Baltazar, the injuries make me concerned. He played like 30% of the games. He was available for like 30% of the games this year. And I know he's gotten a run recently, and so we're all feeling like he's good and healthy. But listen, Inter Miami internally will know better about his injuries and what his long-term sustainability looks like. So, like, I think it's all important to mention. But I don't want to forget that the injuries are like a real concern with him. Okay, number 15, and this is where it drops off, I think, in a significant way. The 14 guys we just mentioned are clear cut. You put them on the field, and I think we all feel good about them. Next, we get to like bench players, role players, and guys that aren't in either great form, don't have a lot of trust from Javier Mascherano, don't play a ton of minutes, are clear backups. And I'll start with number 15, Fafa Picault. Do you remember how excited we were about this signing back in January?
Man, Fafa Biko could have been Allende. Maybe better.
Yeah. And you think back to last year and we had this 4-3-3, or we played with a 3-man front line. And they pushed Diego Gomez up to the front and out of the midfield and took him out of his natural best position because they wanted pace on that left side. And then we signed Fafa Picault, and it's like perfect. Now we can have a true left winger with pace and verticality over the top, and we can get all our midfielders actually in the midfield. And then he just never played, really. And it's gotten less and worse over the course of the season. So he had that game winner against Atlanta. He's had a couple goals this year. He had an injury early, if you remember. I think it was the first game of the season, or maybe the last preseason game where he played like 7 minutes and then missed a month. Maybe that hurt his ability to get integrated into the team. I'm not sure, but I still think he's a good player. And I've seen him in this league and against Inter Miami plenty of times really cause trouble. So I'm putting him as the best of the rest because I think he's still a pretty good player.
Yeah, I think this is a conversation of what if, right? What if Fafa Picault was a starter? I would actually play him in a lot of the games from the first minute, and I'd have him in my starting 11 just because I think he can still do a brilliant job for this team. Clearly not a favorite of Javi Marchano, clearly not a favorite of Suarez. Doesn't seem to gel well with the team as such, and it's a shame because I think there was potential here. But it is what it is. He had a couple of really good moments, and honestly, I'm surprised you took him at number 15. I think I had him number 16 or 17, but yeah, this is, I think, a drop off, like a big drop off in now the players that we're picking.
Okay, number 16, who you got?
I'm going to go with Toto Aviles. Another weird one. I think he's going to not be here next season. In a universe, he would have been the starting centre back for me. Allen and Aviles, Falcone and Aviles, there was so much potential here. He's going to be a great player. I have no doubt in my mind. He's going to be a brilliant player wherever he goes, whether he stays in the MLS, whether he goes abroad. The potential is very high. He has the skill sets. Just didn't seem to click. I think his disciplinary issues on the pitch with the yellow cards last season framed the conversation around Aviles slightly differently. This season, that hasn't been the case, but the fact that he was below the pecking order compared to Lujan was mind-boggling to me. And I would have used him more throughout the season. I don't understand why Javi Mascherano did not. He's probably seeing something in training that we're not. And that is that. For a player that he was familiar with, who has played under Javi Mascherano before, surprising that he didn't get the run that all of us expected him to.
Yeah, just going back to last time, we had him at number 13. I think in the first one we did this year, back right as the season was starting, we had him at number 10, number 10. So it's a big drop from Aviles, and it's because he hasn't played a ton. I think there's a world where he's the number 7 player on this list or 8 player on this list, and we feel great about him being our number 1 center back. But that would have required him to play almost every game and develop like he had been over the last year and a half prior to this season. And he didn't do that, and so he didn't get the development and he didn't get the ability to show it off. A couple of the games he played this year, he's coming in rusty. It's his only start of the month. And so I don't want to punish him too much. I also think some of the criticisms about Aviles are insane. The yellow cards only matter when you get suspended for them. And guess what? It matters because you're not on the pitch able to impact the game. Like that's what we're talking about
Exactly.
here. If you get a yellow card in the game, all it means is you got a yellow card in the game. It doesn't have to affect the game. And when we're talking about some of these other players just giving up goals every game, it was crazy to me that Aviles didn't play more. But he didn't play more, so I don't know what else I don't know what you want to do about it. In the rest category, he and Fafo were to me like the real talents on the best of the rest.
The what could have beens.
Yeah, the what could have beens. So 15, 16, I think is right. I have no argument with him going 15 if you wanted to put him there.
Yeah.
Then I think there's a little bit of another drop off from that point. I'll go Chelo Weigant, number 17.
Can I just go 18? You go 19. I go 20.
Cello's not a what could have been. I think Cello is like a solid MLS right back. Clearly not as good as Ian Frey. Clearly, I think a guy that you might be able to get away with him being your worst starter as an MLS Cup type team, but you don't want to do that. As a backup, I think he's a exceptionally high level backup, but with the salary and everything, like I think that all plays into it. He's solid. He's fine. 17th. I think he's hit his ceiling also. So, there's not that potential boost. Role player on this team.
Very interesting because he was starting every single game and we were beating our head. And now we haven't spoken about Weigand in a long while. So, yeah, I think the law of averages has done its work because Weigand has ended up where I think you and I would expect him to. It's just the salary that hurts a bit because you're paying a high salary for this player who would then deserve to start games. But you can't have him as a backup on that salary. So you either let him go or get him on a reduced wages. But
no, I think his time has to be done in Miami.
Yeah,
and
I think
it was good. You got him on loan for 2 years, and he helped fill a role. Remember, you traded DeAndre Yedlin because of contract concerns. Cello somehow ends up on that similar contract in year 2, but it's on a loan. Good luck to him. I think when he was at Boca Juniors, he was like third string, so he wasn't really playing for them and was good enough to play. He got a jump start to his career. I'm sure he'll go back to Argentina and find a nice club and be able to be like a real player. And clearly a professional talent. But this is a team trying to win the MLS Cup, and so role player.
Exactly. All right, number 18.
To you, number 18.
Oscar Starry. That's a big drop-off, right? I think it's a big drop-off from last season.
Oscar Starry was number 12 in the midseason.
Yeah. Mid-season, sorry.
He and Allen were the two biggest drop-offs, and I think Allen, because of circumstance, Ustari. I will just say I didn't have Ustari in my top 20.
Interesting. Never should have been signed after last season. That was the biggest mistake that we made in the offseason. I have no idea why that was the case. He was clearly signed to push Drake Callender out. He was considered the starter, but again, law of averages doing its thing. I want to applaud Javi Mascherano for making the decision of benching Ustari and starting Rocco Ríos Novo in those last 3 games where I think you and I both as coaches would have kept him on and just swallowed the bitter pill because that is a big gutsy move to make right before the playoffs. It's paid off, but it couldn't have. And I just want to understand what the decision making was behind bringing Ustari in. He is way past his career now. It's done for him. I think he's going to retire soon enough. And there's no reason that he should be on this roster anymore. Well, absolutely none.
I think if he was a backup, you'd be fine with it. You'd be great with Ustari as a backup.
Yeah.
What I will say, I referenced these numbers earlier. Rocco Ríos Novo, post-shot expected goal minus goals allowed. So this is how many goals you should have allowed versus how many goals you actually allowed and how well you do. Rocco Ríos Novo, 84th percentile, 85th percentile. Very good. Oscar Starry, 7th percentile. Incredibly bad. I feel bad because he had some big moments this year. Like, I don't want to hate on him. That LAFC second leg, after we got the lead, he had like 2 or 3 huge saves that saved us in that moment.
Yeah.
The Club World Cup, especially that Al Ahly game, he was fantastic. But like over the course of the season, he cost us a lot of goals. And in ways you don't always notice, because this is the thing about goalkeepers. Sometimes there's a goal you should save, you don't, but it's not always totally obvious from the fan's perspective. But those just little non-saves add up over time. I think he cost us the Supporters' Shield with his play. When he got signed, going back to him being on the roster, when he was signed, I think he was signed as like a guy to compete with Drake. And then he started the season and they wanted to move on Drake. And they gave him this new contract that was insane. We said it at the time. There's no reason to do this right now. There's no competition. They made him one of the highest, 10 highest paid goalkeepers in the league. They paid him to be like a really good goalkeeper. And they gave him a second year. So he's under contract for next year too. Hopefully on a much reduced rate, but we don't know yet. And he played all year, and he shouldn't have been playing much, if I'm being honest. Because
and as I said about
he's not
Rocco,
actually that good.
You need consistency in your goalkeeper. You need calm and composure. And Ustari, though he had some spectacular moments,
he was. This is, I think, the misunderstanding with Ustari is he was calm, he was composed, he was very good at making decisions to come out, like when to come out. He was actually a really good sweeper. Like the one thing he's actually really good at is being a sweeper.
Yeah, sweeping.
He's better with his feet, significantly better with his feet than either Drake or Rocco. But when it comes to keeping the ball out of the back of the net, which is the primary goal, he is one of the 3 worst goalkeepers in the league. So I don't think there's any defending it. I really don't. I'm glad we got to Rocco, and I think Rocco gives us a real chance to win the MLS Cup.
19.
Yeah, I did not want to make this a Bashu Starry conversation. Okay, number 19. I'm going to go with David Ruiz. There's not a lot of guys left that have played a lot of games this year, or a lot of minutes. In fact, I think there's only one guy that has played a lot of minutes, and I'm certainly not going to rank him here. So I'm going David Ruiz because I think David Ruiz is a good MLS player. Like, I think he's still going to have a good MLS future. Not sure it's going to be on Inter Miami, but like I think this is a guy who's going to play in the MLS for the next, 8 to 10 years, maybe longer. So I like David Ruiz. I've always liked David Ruiz, and it's unfortunate we didn't get to see him more this year because he was injured. I'm not sure we would have seen him a ton more regardless because of the way Javier Mascherano has rotated, especially in the midfield. But I still think there's a nice solid player there.
Yeah, this was the year that we would see whether Ruiz takes that next step or doesn't, and he did not, which is fine. I think it's time to move him on, but he is a good backup option, a good role player, and I enjoy him as a player. Unfortunate we didn't see a lot of him this season, but it is what it is, and I think you've said everything that there is to say about Ruiz. I had him at 19 as well, so that's about it. Probably the last time that he's going to be on this ranking.
He did sign a new contract earlier this year, so you never know. But I do think if Javier Mascherano continues, he'll probably move on.
Yeah, I don't think he plays that much under Javier Mascherano.
Yeah. Okay, number 20. Who you got? And I implore you not to do the thing that I think you're going to do.
Gonzalo Lujan. No, it's unfair not to have him on the 20, man.
Okay,
Come
can
on.
I just say this? Your options are Santi Morales,
Yeah.
Alan Obando,
Yeah.
Gonzalo Lujan, Ryan Saylor.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have picked Gonzalo Lujan, but
That's absurd. I can't believe you would not pick Gonzalo Lujan. Listen, man, he has his faults. He's not a great player. We've seen him make mistakes. We don't like the way he fits into this setup. That's it. No, man. I think it would be unfair not to have him in the top 20. He's played enough minutes. He's had a couple of games where he's been okay and hasn't cost us. And that's about it. I think he's not a great player. I'm okay with him being like the fifth, sixth choice centre back. But I would not pick Alan Abondo, who has one game. Not pick Santi Morales, who's played like 2 games. And then who was the third one? Ryan Saylor. Come on, man.
Well, just to
You
be
have
clear,
to pick Lujan.
Alan Obondo's played as many minutes as Matteo Silvetti this year. Like, it's not okay.
That is wild. But also,
Well,
oh wow, yeah, that's actually a really interesting stat. And he
just
has
out
a
of
goal.
curiosity, is this your 20? Exactly.
This is
not
my
in
20,
the order,
yes.
but these are your 20. Okay.
Yes, these are
Just
my
for the record, I had Alan Obondo ahead of Lujan and ahead of Ustari, and then I thought about Ustari and Santi Morales. I actually did have Ustari as my number 20 ahead of Santi. Lujan, I had as last. I don't need to say anything about Gonzalo Lujan. I think the team structurally was much better defensively this year, but they had a much worse record in terms of goals allowed because of Gonzalo Lujan and because of Oscar Ustari. And if we had replaced those two earlier in the season, we would be looking at one of the best defensive teams in the league. And I really do believe that.
Wasn't the defensive stat something like Gonzalo Lujan was the best in terms of goals conceded across all defenders or something?
He wasn't the best. He was even with everyone, but
Yeah.
again, that was looking at like team stats. We didn't really dive into exact impact. And maybe we will this offseason, but I will
Not a
say
great player.
The battered Herons did something earlier in the year where they went through every goal conceded and like counted who was most at fault. And it was, around the San Jose game, I think. And Lujan had like 9 goals that were his fault, and the next highest was like 4 goals for Starry or 4 goals for Maxi Falcone. So it was like he was just far and away terrible. I think one of the reasons we did well in the Club World Cup was because he was injured. I think one of the reasons we're doing well in the MLS Cup is because he's not playing. I think they got to get him off the team somehow. I think, and then as far as Alan Obondo,
Sell him to Atlanta.
well, unfortunately, Chris Henderson didn't buy Gonzalo Lujan, and I don't think he would have. I think Alan Obondo's a talent, and I know that's going to sound silly. I know Javier Mascherano doesn't like him. I like Alan Obondo, and I wish we got to see more of him desperately. I think he's going to pop up in 5 years in for Sevilla or something, or Marseille.
I wouldn't be surprised. You're talking about Lujan, right? No, Alan Obondo. I know. Alan Obondo is going to show up in Sevilla or somewhere, but yes.
I'm not convinced Alan Obondo has lower. I think he might have the same ceiling as Matteo Silvetti. I really mean that. The injuries. No. This is just speaking off the. I haven't heard anything, but I do wonder if he had a bigger role to play this year, if he would have been available a little bit more often. I can understand he's in a new country, a new language, new culture, and he's trying to fit in while also not playing and doing the one thing he's based his identity around with a bunch of guys he doesn't, he's just meeting for the first time. Like, I can understand why that could be really hard for an 18-year-old kid mentally. And I wonder if that has reflected in both his ability to stay healthy and then just to train and become a part of the team. I also don't, even if he had stayed healthy all year, I'm not sure how many minutes he would have played with Suarez on the team because of how, we've now seen, it's not just Suarez that plays every minute, but Busquets and DePaul and Alba and Messi, they all play every minute they're available. So they are, I don't think Obondo would have played much regardless, but I think there's a talent there, and I bought his kit because I wanted it to be like a trivia question one day or something. But again, I think he might have as high of a ceiling as any young player on this list.
I actually agree with you, and we've seen glimpses of him, and there's so much that he could bring if we actually use him properly. And I don't think we're gonna ever see him for Inter Miami again. But if we do, I think there's somebody.
I wouldn't be afraid to try and bring him back next year. I don't think that.
I wouldn't either. I think there's somebody in the scouting world who's looking at Alan Obondo and being like, why is he just sitting on the bench at Inter Miami? So we'll see.
Other guys, Santi Morales and Ryan Saylor. I gave a little bit of consideration to Santi ahead of Ustari, but ultimately didn't pull the trigger. I've been saying all year Ryan Saylor's a better player than Gonzalo Lujan, and I certainly had him higher in my rankings. And then that's it. Israel Boatwright didn't play. Will Yarbrough didn't play. Tyler Hall didn't play. I don't know if you want to give consideration to Daniel Pinter for his 15-minute off the bench performance, but I didn't.
Yes, I'd like to give him some consideration and congratulate him for making a first team debut, but that's about it.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk about sort of what we learned doing this because, man, last time we talked about how the depth has fallen off in an outstanding way, in a outstandingly bad way. And it just happened again this time. I will take you back to mid-season. We had Messi, Suarez, Busquets, Alba, Segovia, Bright, Allen, Frey, Allende. I think very similar list to today. Drake Callender was number 10. Kramaski was 11. Ustari at 12 falls off. Aviles, Falcone. Redondo at 15, gone. Weigand, Ruiz, Afonso gone. Baldassar, obviously, he hadn't played it really at that point. So even like then, we had Baltasar and Leo Afonso, guys we felt good about getting minutes with like rounding out the top 20. And here we are with guys that we didn't even want to pick top 20, rounding out the top 20 in Gonzalo Lujan. So,
hey, that's my top 20. What do you mean?
No, my point is compared to exactly. And then you even go back another, if we went back to the end of last season, and I have it here, if you'll give me a second, our 20th player was Nico Frede. Where would Nico Frede rank on this list? Like 15th, 16th?
I'd say about 16th, yeah.
Robert Taylor, where would he be on this list?
Oh, he'd be number one. Yes, you, Robbie.
So, Julian Gressel, Kramaski, Redondo, Campana, like the depth of this team has shrunken dramatically. Again, going back to that list, I think we'd feel good about all 20 players playing minutes.
Yeah, not anymore.
Even at the beginning of the season.
And can I just say something?
Julian Gressel and Robert Taylor still on the team. What's up?
I think it's going to go worse. Next season, we're not going to be as good next season as we are this season. That's a fact. Sergio Busquets is going to be gone. Alba is going to be gone. Suarez potentially could be gone. I don't think we're going to be as good next season as we are this season.
Ian Frey,
yeah.
On the flip side, maybe we'll be better at goalkeeper.
Maybe we improve the overall.
No, I hear what you're saying.
There's a universe in which we can't create the same roster as we did 2 years ago. I don't think we can.
And I also want to say it was spoiled what we had this time a year ago. And we acknowledged that at the time. We called it the deepest roster in MLS history. Now it's a normal MLS roster with a couple superstar players.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
It's a shame because it didn't have to be that way.
And maybe that's what we need to in the MLS Cup. Who knows, right? Who knows if that's what we need. But yeah, this is not a roster that can compete on all fronts every single season. And this is not a roster that'll head and shoulders be above every single team in the MLS. This is going to be a roster that can compete, that might be one of the teams in contention for the MLS Cup, but will not be the clear favorites. And that's okay, I guess.
Yeah, I think it's Inter Miami's doing. I don't think it was some sort of natural cycle out. They tried to replace Leo Campana with Alan Obando, and they don't give Obando minutes, even when he was healthy and available. They sold Diego Gomez. I think they did a good job replacing him with Telasco Segovia, but Julian Gressel, they never replaced. Robert Taylor, they never replaced. Federico Redondo and Benjamin Kramaski, they never replaced. The guys that could have come through to sort of bolster the team in the academy, from the academy, were not given opportunities to earn real roles. Guys like Santi Morales and Tyler Hall and Israel Boatwright. I think there's a world where Israel Boatwright played enough minutes this year that we would feel good about him being the number 2 right back next year. And I'd still would want him to be the number 2 right back next year. But I like that development and that
it could
exposure.
Happen.
It didn't happen, and it could have happened. So this roster could have been much deeper. It's not, and I think this is a fair reflection of where we're at.
Yeah.
What other takeaways do you have?
You really despise Gonzalo Lujan. No, I think we've covered mostly everything. I think there's a couple of players on this list that I believe will take that next step. Either Silvetti or Baltazar. I'm guessing Silvetti, who has obviously more chance of going up the list because he's going to be on the roster next year. But then there's going to be a few players that we're not going to see again, or we should not see again. Busquets, Alba, obviously the last time being on this list. Wagon, I believe, can be cycled out. Astari should be cycled out. Fafa Pico. There's going to be a lot of team building happening, and this is not going to be the list next time we do this. And that's interesting, but also a fact of the MLS.
A lot of guys here on loan and or retiring. Maybe like 6 or 7 or 8 guys on this list will certainly or potentially not be back next year. Busquets and Alba obviously retiring. We'll see what happens with Suarez, but Rocco is on loan. Tadeo Allende is on loan. Baltasar Rodriguez is on loan. Chelo Weigant is on loan. Alan Obando, who's my honorable mention, I guess, is on loan. And a lot of those guys, I don't know if they're going to be back, right? Allende will probably have an opportunity to take the next step in his career.
Yeah.
And not settle for, an MLS job. This was like a bounce through year. Baltasar, I think that's a really interesting conversation because of more about the money than the injury concerns than the talent. Cello, I think, will be gone. Rocco might. What do you do with Rocco? Do you just commit to him being your number one?
We'll get
and
somebody
find
else.
a way to get Ustari off the goal? Because I think with Ustari under contract for next year, you either make Rocco your number one or you let him go back and commit to, go get a new number one. Like, I think that's tough. Aviles, I could see getting moved on. David Ruiz, I could see. Not getting moved on is probably the wrong word. Finding a new opportunity for Ruiz and Aviles. So Pico also out of contract. Fafa Pico out of contract. So I mean, this is a really influx roster. They're going to have to do a ton of work this offseason. And
that's what we said last year as well.
Well, I think they're going to have to do. Here's what I'll say. Last year, they had to replace guys that were on the team. This year, I think they have to upgrade. At a lot of spots and upgrade in terms of depth as well. And I don't think the front office earned a lot of trust or respect in their ability to do that last offseason. And even through the summer, right? I think we both like Silvetti, but they needed a center back, didn't get one. Had all that dealings where they were trading and then trading for and trading away international roster spots. Didn't end up getting the center back. Silvetti was sort of a throw-in at the end because they liked him, but it wasn't like he was their prime target and they got him the first day the window opened. Rodrigo de Paul, great signing on the sort of face of it. I don't know if he's been spectacular, but it's interesting. We'll have these conversations when the season ends, but for now, I just think it's an interesting look into it.
Oh, wow. This is what we're stuck with. Well, not stuck with. This is what we're left with. And stuck with Gonzalo Lujan.
You looking forward to the bye week? Moving off the draft?
The rest of the week?
No, like Inter Miami not playing this weekend. They have 2 weeks. Do you like that it's a 2-week break? Do you hate it?
I want to go straight into that game. I want to go to the MLS Cup final and win it.
I know. You know what I was thinking? That first round should be like 3 games in 1 week. You should play home midweek, and then back.
It shouldn't be 3 games. It should just be home and away, and then be done with it. And aggregate goes through.
Or even just 1 game.
1 game's fine.
I like 1 game better than 2, if I'm being honest. But if it is going to be 3, it should be like weekend, midweek, weekend, because then the better team you would imagine to have better depth and 2 home field advantages and less rest. And if you're the 1 seed, that team just played another game in the midweek before that in the wild card. So like you're talking about more distinct advantages, I think. So I don't know. That's it for us. Any final thoughts?
No, I think this is always a fun exercise to do. Gives us a bit of insight into what the team is looking like, how it's going into the future, and also how we're thinking about the team. And I think for the 14 players in that list, I am comfortable and I'm happy with what we have right now. And maybe this wasn't the time to do it because of the playoffs and everything, but also it's always good to take stock of these players, and hopefully they can over deliver by getting to the final and winning the MLS Cup.
I actually do have one last question. This is our list as of potentially 3 games left in the season. We were okay doing it now because we didn't want a 3-game sample to drastically impact how we felt about certain players. Is there anyone you think could really like make a move? I know we probably won't do this again after the season, but like you could see yourself falling in love with over the next 3 games, or being the other way.
DePaul, maybe. Suarez, maybe making a move to number 2. Who knows? Silvetti. I think it's going to be the goal scorers rather than anyone else.
I agree. I think
I think DePaul has a chance to go up.
I think so too. DePaul and Suarez would be the 2 that I would look at, which is not that fun of an answer. I wish it was Baltazar and Silvetti, but
I would say Silvetti maybe.
Yeah. Okay, let's wrap it up there. Guys, thank you so much for being a part of this. I think we both expected this to be a 60-minute episode, and here we are an hour and a half later, closing it out. But it was fun, and that's why it ended up being so long. So appreciate you guys being here. Hope you guys have a wonderful day, a wonderful week. We will see you guys in a couple days. But until then, enjoy and have a lovely week. Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in. Do us a favor and hit that like and subscribe button. Since our first viewer, sharing this with you all has been the very best part. So from the beginning until the end, thank you for being a part of this and have a wonderful day.